Zarato. He's the gentleman who's standing between you and beer and wine and fun times. But nonetheless, he's going to be giving you a presentation on cross-border remittances and financial inclusion in Africa. The clicker is here.
Hi everyone. Yeah, really interesting. So I think I'll just try and be quick. That everybody's thirsty already. So my name is Remittances. I'm the founder and CEO of Northwest. We are the company behind Schedule Pay, the fintech/SaaS application that we basically presented on the other side. We are basically management consultants as well as software engineers, and play in a very rich space around digital transformation, where everything that we do is basically underpinned by governance, risk, and compliance. So we've done quite a lot of work in that space, and yeah, today I'm going to be talking about cross-border remittances as well. So if I can see with a show of hands, I see we still have a few people. Please don't shout it out. Can anybody give me what number is actually covered by the red vehicle? Anyone? Yes? 72? No? Anybody else? Yeah? 64? No? Anyone else? Yeah?
78.
Why 78?
Because you have flipped the numbers and it's 86, 87, 88, 89, 90.
100%. So in essence, what this basically just illustrates is that sometimes we need to look at problems or solutions with a different perspective. We need to basically think out of the box. It takes time for a lot of institutions, especially where we basically play in, where we have a lot of companies that are quite big in size. They've been around for a very long time, and it basically takes time for them to adapt or modernize in essence. And with that comes when we come in and assist them with think differently, look at a different perspective in terms of how you try to approach the solution or whatever the problem that they might have in that regard. So when it comes to cross-border remittances, right, I'm going to give you a quick story. I have a helper, her name is Martha. She is originally from Zimbabwe. She sends money to her country every month. She basically has a 6-year-old as well as a sister that takes care of the child in Zimbabwe. And with that, I basically gave her a bonus in December. This was on the 1st of December. And with that money, she went in and bought school clothes, bought groceries, bought a few other things that she obviously needed to send home. And this is obviously the story of many people in South Africa who have families outside of the country, and obviously have to then transact in that regard. One of the big things that she obviously had was cash. But now, how did she send this cash across to Zimbabwe? This cash was sent over by a bus. So what she did is, she basically packed everything up, took the money, literally took her entire bonus money, put it in, and then basically hid it somewhere in the luggage that she had. She was staying in South Africa. Basically, the bus was taking her across everything that she was sending to Zimbabwe. With that, on the 11th of December, the bus departed. It arrived on the 22nd of December, and her luggage was gone. Everything was gone. Her kids obviously had to now spend Christmas with nothing, and it basically took quite a long time to basically see in terms of what's happening. This was literally a few days before Christmas. The bus operators were also not present, not available, and guess what? She went back after Christmas, and it was never found. All her savings that she's basically been occupying, or rather gathering over the whole year, were all gone. Now, this is the story of many people in South Africa that basically have to send money, and with those, these are people that are obviously unbanked. She doesn't have a bank account. She receives money from a e-wallet from myself. She does not work only for myself. She works for other people as well. And with those people, same thing. So it means she's had this money accumulating somewhere in her house in Dipsu, basically putting it under the carpet or basically her mattress. I'm not going to go into all the details in this regard. But some of the common issues that we're obviously faced with in this regard is basically theft and loss, lack of accountability, service fees, as well as exchange rates. So these are problems that a lot of people are faced with in terms of how do I now send money to my loved ones outside of the country. And this is the hindrance where a person obviously will not necessarily have a bank account and import so yeah, and then obviously we have the legal and regulatory issues that obviously come with that. We do quite a lot of work within this space where we assist companies like fintechs and so forth to basically comply with the laws, and I'll basically just talk a bit about this just shortly. Now, I'm going to try and go through this slide very quickly. I'm going to go through to familiarity and trust. What does that mean? So it basically means that a lot of people, and this is the reason why they obviously rely on the methods of sending out money to other countries, is because of the community networks that they have. They rather send money with somebody that they know or they basically trust, or the cultural norm. Even today, my mother will never send money to e-wallet. She will never send money or basically go into a FNB banking or whatever the case might be and send money in that regard. She's going to go to an ATM, withdraw the money, go to ShopRite, and then send the money. So these are things that a lot of people within our space in South Africa, as well as Africa, were basically faced with in that regard. And now the question is, what could have been done differently to ensure that my helper in this regard sends money to her daughter and they receive it timelessly, and obviously they definitely do receive that money. And why do they always have to then go through these processes where if they are unbanked, they basically can't send money through formal means in that regard. Open banking. I'm not sure if anybody knows what open banking is. I know there's a few people still left. Okay. Banking without borders. Yes. Anybody else? So basically with open banking, this is a way of sharing information through APIs. I think the few speakers that spoke a bit earlier did chat about open APIs and the likes. So this is where open banking basically comes in, where different organizations can now start sharing information with each other, and then obviously giving the allowance to fintech companies and the likes to create systems of integrating into the banking system to share a person's financial data and the likes, or basically anything else that they would obviously want to do in that regard. And with that, I was in Malawi about a month ago, and we met with a fintech company that we obviously are now about to assist. They built a payment application system that allows merchants to interface with any banks without having to open a bank account or even deal or engage with a bank in that regard. And with stats like where Malawi, where 67% of the adult population is basically unbanked, or they don't have a bank account at all, as well as 70% of those on that stat is basically women that don't have any bank accounts. How do we then move money from this country to any other country outside? So this poses a change in how we now think in terms of how do we now create innovative ways to send money across to other countries. There's a lot of countries, or rather there's a lot of companies in the world, like India, we have Sati, that have obviously been in this space for quite a long time. And they've basically been assisting a lot of companies in this regard through open banking mechanisms, whether it's an app that they built to allow the sharing of data through different companies like insurance companies, banking companies, and the likes. And with this, can obviously open up a space where a South African company or whatever the case might be can talk to a bank, have that information shared. There is presence of that bank in any other country. There is presence of any other institution of similar magnitude where the data can basically be shared to ensure that from a KYC perspective, whoever is going to receive money on the other side can basically then receive that money. So the financial inclusion part is quite critical, and it basically takes time from a compliance perspective, regulatory perspective, to ensure that everybody is basically banked with the likes. But for as long as we have high transaction cost, limited access to infrastructure and financial services, regulatory barriers and the likes, we'll always have challenges in terms of how do we now send money across to other countries. Now, what is the role of open banking in this regard? And what are the solutions that can be basically implemented? So this is where a lot of fintech companies can obviously come up and ensure that they integrate with the normal mainstream banks, because a normal bank will not necessarily go into rural Kenya as an example, or rural Malawi, or rural Zimbabwe to go and put infrastructure there, put a bank and the likes. But a lot of people within that space are basically on telecommunication companies within that space, have wallets and the likes, and people can obviously transact seriously in that regard. And this is where open banking would basically be a big solution in that regard. So before I went that, so in essence, going back to the first question that I had, how can we obviously think differently? So in this regard, one of the biggest things that we always need to look at in this regard is financial inclusion, cost efficiency, innovation, collaboration and partnerships is quite key, especially with banks and the likes, where we basically can engage a lot within that space and ensure that from an innovation perspective, a lot of work can be done. Regulations, as we know, within Africa, there's a lot of things that happen in that space. They mentioned the end with JNU earlier on. So how do we then create partnerships in that regard from a regulatory perspective to ensure that we are able to send money across different licenses and the likes. So I think with that, I'd like to thank you and